I look back on me, like, just popping out these babies with, like, I thought I was in love. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what love was. If you showed me attention and told me I was pretty, you loved me.
Yeah.
Woke up this morning feeling brand new. Realized I'm the one, no need for a crew. No more playing small. I'm taking
Welcome back to the W Number. Today I got a woman here who's a mother with a lot of history behind her. I feel like her story is probably gonna impact a lot of women who are in addiction and on the streets, or in any walk of life. So tell us what your name is and where you grew up.
My name's Grace, and I grew up in Yarmouth, Massachusetts. And I feel like I had a really pretty good childhood for the most part. I had a loving father, a loving mother. I think my parents split at a young age. I was 5. And I don't remember fighting or anything like that from my parents. It was more or less, I just knew they weren't happy together, at a young age. And it didn't bother me whatsoever that, they lived in 2 different houses. And I think a lot of that was because they moved just 2 miles away from each other on the same road in Yarmouth. But with that came the instability of I got bounced around every other day, between my mother's house and my father's house. My grandmother lived within walking distance. And so it's every other day I was at a different house. When I was at my mother's house, I think what was hard for me there is being the oldest female, out of 5. There was a lot of responsibility put on me when it came to taking care of the little kids. I did a lot of cleaning up after them, a lot of watching them, not wanting to do this. It was just expected of me, and I did that from a young age. I remember being young with a baby on my hip. And I knew I always wanted to be a mom. That was one thing from my siblings, from a young age. I never grew up thinking I want to be a doctor or anything like that. It was always I want to have a family and be a mom. I had my first child at 18.
Before even that, let's start with your childhood. So were your mom and dad together?
They were together, married.
Married?
They had my oldest brother, me, and my younger brother. And they're married for from their teens to their 30s. And I think in that time in your life, you just grow a lot.
Yeah.
You change who you are in a decade or so. And they weren't the same people anymore. And they split, and everything seemed cool. I got a new stepfather and I got a stepmother as well, which along with my stepmother came a sister who was only a month older than me in age. So it was we became best friends. We did everything together. We were inseparable. And still to this day, we won't say we're a month apart. She was only 27 days older than me. But yeah, no, she and my brother had a big influence on me. My older brother, he was so cool, in my eyes. He was very smart. Everything came so quickly to him. And I wasn't like that, from a young age. A big thing with me is I had an IEP at school, just from having an IEP for me, that felt I was different, I didn't realize I learned different. I just told myself I was stupid, I wasn't as smart as everybody else. I wasn't as good as my brother was super smart. And I always looked up to that. I looked up to him in every way, but I also really resented that about him and my stepsister, because I always felt they were putting me down, and they made me feel less than. And I think they did a lot of times, just being kids.
Yeah.
I don't think they meant it, but it's funny how a child can take something like that and it be almost trauma. I carried that into adulthood. I didn't think I was smart. You know what I mean? And yeah, I might not be book smart. I can't tell you world history. I can tell you some cool history, but I'm not the smartest person, but I can fix things, you know what I mean? I'm very mechanically driven and I'm very good at things I love to do. I think when I put my heart into stuff, I become good at it, and I think I'm blessed with that, where it's I've always been naturally talented, and took me a long time to see that side of me.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what kind of events would you say shaped your childhood, and made you who you are?
I think there's a lot of events, My father was a biker. He was tattooed from here down. I looked up to that. My brother wasn't biker. He was more had the Nike. I really looked up to him and played basketball. So that was my thing. I had to be good and I had to be better than my brother, And he's still better than me. But my brother was abusive in ways where like mean, dude. My stepmother told me this as an adult. You used to look up to your brother, and like I always thought that was the worst person you could look up to. Because like at the time, he didn't have goals in life. You know what I mean? His goals were like to use and to party and stuff like that. And here I am, a young girl, and I was really being very young age influenced by it, and like good and bad. With the basketball, I really went far with that. I was on travel teams. You know what I mean? It's something I love. I still love.
Did they say you had mental illness, like, or anything when you were a kid?
No, and that's funny you asked. Like, I asked my mother recently, if she noticed, like, why didn't you guys ever put me on medication for my ADHD,
Yeah.
Because clearly I struggle with this. She's like, you're an active girl. I didn't know you struggled, and you had an IEP, so, like, I just thought you learned differently. It was never mental health. With my older brother, it was. And I think he became the focus, and I got kind of lost in this. Zachary couldn't do any wrong. Grace, I just kind of started doing my own thing, and I got in trouble for it. Like, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
For everything I did.
Yeah.
My brothers, we do the same thing together, and his would be excused. He has mental illness, and this is why he does this. And for me, it was unacceptable. And I feel like I've been held at like a higher standard in a way, being like the oldest female of my family. It definitely impacted me as a young child. My father impacted me in a way like I thought all dads drank 30 packs and, told everybody they were the town mayor. And, like he was the mayor of Yarmouth. That's what I thought, and I thought they just all ride motorcycles, and that was like thrilling to me.
Yeah.
That's what, like, growing up, I started wanting at a young age to feel that thrill, like an out of body experience. I think,
Yeah. Did you experience drugs in the house, like, other than your brother? Was your mother or father, like, did they drink or take drugs in any type of way?
So my brother was experienced, like, just normal kid stuff at his age. But I was doing it at the same time at my age where I was young, My father was an alcoholic for sure. Going back further into my family, it's what it is: mental illness, alcoholism, drug addiction. Luckily my mother is not an addict or alcoholic. She works with them. You know what I mean? Like, that's the field she decided to go in, and she helps people daily, which is beautiful. She's a young mom though, and my stepfather was a mess. So that influenced me a lot.
You say your mom worked in the medical field?
Not medical, more or less recovery in general, like addiction field.
So did you grow up in the halls, or did you just have experience from being like an outside party from your mom being in the recovery here?
So I started learning about addiction younger than I ever picked up because my mother was studying, going to college. She was probably like early 30s at this point, you know what I mean? She went on to have 2 more kids. So those are the kids like the 3 younger, they're like 8 and 10 years younger than me. So there was this responsibility put on me. I was just a street smart kid.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what pills were before I ever took one. Like, nobody ever showed me how to use it. I'll never forget the first time I like used something. It was an OC. I found a stick holder, and I pulled it up, and I was like, I had to have been like 10 years old, and I remember looking at it being like, that's an Oxycontin 20. Like, I just knew.
Yeah.
And I showed it to my friend, and we broke it up. It's like, split it.
How old were you then?
I was probably like 8 or 9, 10, maybe 9 or 10. At this point, like, I knew what weed was.
Wow. So you, hold on real quick, because that's crazy to me. So you sniffed an Oxycontin when you were like 8 or 9?
Yeah. Like, I remember knowing about like drug use and like knowing how to do it. So like, we stupid kid shit.
Yeah.
Like, you remember being in middle school sniffing Pixie sticks? Like, like shit like that. But like, that evolved really quickly to me, like finding Vicodin in my stepfather's stuff, or not doing it, but knowing how I could do it and knowing that it wouldn't affect me in some way. I don't think at that point I was searching for that effect. I just knew it did something to you,
Who were your friends at school? Were they the goths, or who were they?
They were very much like everybody. I think that once I started getting bad enough grades because of like marijuana use happened like very quick. My progression very fast. I never liked to drink, but when I did drink, I drank till I blacked out.
Yeah.
God knows where like I was those nights. I didn't really have that like teen experience, like going out and drinking with my friends, because I was far more advanced. Everyone, I think when I was younger, I really liked like the more jock type kids because I was into basketball. But once I started doing what I was doing, I knew what crowd to hang out with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And these were the crowds that like their parents didn't give a shit what they were doing. You know, I could tell that my family, I was going somewhere and really actually go there, but just have no parental guidance whatsoever. So it was like, okay, you know, my parents didn't know what the hell was going on. And I remember, like, I lived at my friend's houses at young ages, just like weeks at a time, be sleeping over. You know, I tried to stay away from home as much as possible. At my mother's house, I always shared a room, or I always cared for. At my father's house, I feel like same thing with my stepsister. She was almost like a twin to me, you know what I mean? We did everything together. So like, we had 2 separate rooms, but we lived in one room and one bed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, nothing was ever my own.
Yeah.
I just feel like I always flip-flopped. Then my family.
You feel like that's because you are a girl, or?
I think my parents were young. I think, you know, my mom was overwhelmed with a lot of kids. I think it was easy for me to slip under the cracks. Easy for me to just choose what I wanted to do at a young age. You know, if I wanted to get off the bus at my father's house because I was bad at my mom or in trouble at my mom's, screw my mom. I'm staying at my dad's house.
Yeah.
I was never in trouble. You know, I'd get suspended once I started getting in trouble. Like, shortest amount of time I'd be suspended for was at least 2 weeks, you know? Yeah. So I get hit with 2 weeks of suspension, and my mom would drive me to my bus stop every day, and my father would come and pick me back up and bring me home to his house. You know, don't let your mother know type thing. Let's sweep this under the rug. But yeah.
Do you remember the first time you picked it? Where were you? How did that go down?
I was in my kitchen with my father. I remember being 7 or 8, and everybody, just like a lot of tattooed people in my house, they're all drinking, having a good time. Music. There was this one guy, you know, I still know him to this day. It's all on my Facebook, tattoo artist. He'd come and bang out little tattoos and probably make good money. And we just party. I remember Jello shots. That was a big thing. My stepmom, you know, and like the kids there, you know, it was fun. I remember those Chinese brewed teacups. My dad had a case of Canadian Mist whiskey. And I said to him, I want to try that. And he said, oh, you couldn't handle that. And I just remember filling that cup and showing off, like chugging it and putting it down. And my dad going, holy shit. Like, I didn't think she was going to do that. It was never like more than that. It would be like when I'm partying or whatever, I'd swig something. But it got to the point where, you know, I was young, like tween. Grace, go get your father a beer. I get him to get myself one. And it was okay. Like, nothing crazy was going on really in my home.
So did you go to in high school?
Like, yeah. Middle school, I started failing I failed off the team. That was devastating for me. It was very devastating for me. I think it was like 7th, 8th grade. I was the only girl within like a lot of shops down there, you know, in men's shops, you know, men's trades, I guess. I loved it. You know, I really kicked ass at it, and my drug use was a problem. And they saw it in school. They brought in a substance abuse counselor into my school just for me. Like, I visited with him every Thursday. So I made it 9th grade. I went to treatment for my first time. And I did 3 months in a halfway house, women's halfway house at the time. Like, we had juvenile, like adolescent programs. We don't anymore. And so I went there, and that changed my whole life.
Did you ever experience like assaultive behavior as a young person before 15 years old?
Yeah.
So that's like a statistic. Say that 55% of women experience some type of assault, sexual assault, or, you know, just regular physical assault from men before they're age 15 years old. So how does that apply to you?
I didn't know until almost this time around that I was even being sexually assaulted. In my head, it was normal. I've never said to someone, like, I was sexually assaulted as a child, because it never dawned on me that I was being sexually assaulted. I think because I was groomed. And I was groomed by my brother's friend, who was also a neighbor, who would, like, replay Truth or Dare. So, like, but I remember I was young enough, 5. Like, yeah, like, I remember, like, I was young enough to be in, like, footsie pajamas. I remember that. And, like, my whole life, like, I've thought of that. Like, I remember being like, I was really young when we did some weird shit, like as kids, like writing that off as like normal kid stuff.
Yeah.
But then dawning on me, like thinking, like going through my life, like why did my life come to this, and figuring out, like, wow, I was sexually assaulted a lot. We played this game a lot, you know what I mean, as a young child.
With other kids or with adults?
It was with a neighborhood boy who was probably at least 6 years older than me.
Okay.
At least he was a couple of years older than my brother. And my older brother is almost 4 years older than me.
So what exactly happened?
Like, he'd come over, his sister with two family, actually, like, all the siblings, they'd come over to my grandmother's house. My grandma lived down the street from my father on a cul-de-sac. We'd all hang out there, It was a safe place. We rode bikes, we had bike jumps in the woods. But at a young age, like, they'd come over to parties and things we were doing at my grandma's. And I just remember we'd have sleepovers and they were allowed to sleep over because they were just, like, the neighborhood family that, like, were close to us. I don't think I ever, like, alerted someone that it was weird or different or not right because I had always been around this person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think because he was, like, gentle and nice, maybe. Almost loving and caring. Yeah, manipulative, of course. But I don't know if it really affected me growing up because I never looked at it as a
maybe not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, it could devalue you as a person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I grew up, there's no reason telling, like, why I didn't have self-esteem. Like, why is that at a young age? Like, I had parents who rooted me on, who loved me, cared for me. So why was I so messed up on the inside?
I think maybe a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's so many levels of abuse, which is starting with, psychological, then physical, but then it stems also into the oppressive type of atmosphere as a kid, being a woman or just a little girl, and all these grown men and how they treat women in general, especially a woman without any type of power, which is a child. And it subconsciously rubs off on you and you start thinking like, you're less than, or you just don't matter as much. And I think that could have a lot to do with it. But I think this is your story and I want to hear it from you, And, let me just ask you a couple more questions. Like, going into your teenage years, did you ever experience it again? Like, going further?
I did because of my use. That's another thing is, like, I put my body in places I should never have my body. Like, I didn't care about myself, you know what I mean? But, like, at a young age, I remember drinking, like I said, till I blacked out. And, through high school kids, And I remember coming to during, like, in the bathroom. Like, and I remember not having a memory of it. And then one day having a memory come to me and being like, holy fuck, that happened. Like, I got raped, dude. I got fucking gangbanged in the bathroom when I was fucking unconscious. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, essentially that's, like, I don't know, it's really weird, and because I put myself in that situation. What's even more fucked up is my child's father was in the room. He knew something was going on, but he didn't care. He was fucking partying, doing his thing.
Yeah.
Probably thought I was just hooking up with someone. But, like, I definitely had to my body, like, I had no control.
Yeah.
Because in my head, because I was a sexual person, because I put myself in these situations, I've always justified it. Like, that I've deserved it. But, like, I was abused because I put myself there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was never like, I've never really played victim because I never really felt like, until sorry to interrupt, but I didn't feel like a victim.
So did you ever sell yourself? I don't want to be touchy about the situation, and I don't want people to get anything weird off it.
No.
Get to your story, and what made you who you are, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, like, a lot of what made me who I am, So I went to that treatment facility when I was 15. I had my sweet 16 in there. I'm like, at that point, like, I had dabbled in things.
Yeah.
I knew what things were. I go into this treatment facility, I'm made to be there because I was on juvenile probation. I was made to be there for the 3 months and stick it out. And when I got out, I knew how to shoot heroin.
So you were on juvenile probation. What were you on juvenile probation for? When did you first get arrested?
I was 14. I was dating a kid who was like 17. And at the time what it looked like, long story short, it looked like I stole a car and drove without a license at 14, but it was my boyfriend at the time that I took to go to a payphone and happened to get pulled over on the way. But they hit me with a unauthorized used motor vehicle, just like a bunch of stupid shit. Started my journey, in the juvenile probation, which like from 14 to 18, like I never graduated that. You know what I mean? I just turned 18 and fucking went on to big boy shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what kind of facilities did you end up as juvenile? Like dropped in line?
No, none.
None? So did you just get out on bail or?
I don't know, like what would happen, like I got put on probation. I remember my probation was actually, I had to check in with them. It's really hard to remember a lot of that, like those years, but I had to check in with them a lot. I ended up violating like all the time. Every time I'd violate me, they put me into like Sheriff's Youth Ranch, or my mom would tell me a lot too. It was like the thing she thought she was doing me a favor. I never got held as a juvenile, but it was always more hoops to jump through. I don't know if that's because I was a female, honestly, because I constantly fucked it up. Kids are made to make mistakes. Like, I think putting a child under that close lock and key and say, you have to live your life a certain way. If you don't, we're going to lock you up for God knows how long. Kids are made to make mistakes. That's how we learn as people. How are we ever going to grow if we can't learn to do these things by making mistakes, So as a child, telling them they have to do this, that, and like having them abide by that, it's almost fucking impossible, dude.
Yeah.
You're asking the impossible out of a child.
Yeah. Giving them adult standard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I just felt very stuck and very scared, dude. I think a lot of the reason I made it, like, I didn't get sent away or anything, it's like my mom literally locked me in the house. I wasn't allowed to leave the fucking yard. It was terrible for a couple of years, man. And like, that's what really started me rebelling.
Yeah. That's the oppression that sparks it. I went through the same thing after my brother died, but yeah.
Yeah.
So when you started rebelling, like when you say rebelling, what exactly does that mean?
My mom will always say, like, I told her exactly what she needed to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mom, I'll see you at 8 o'clock tonight. I'll be home. And I do the exact opposite, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of that was, I wasn't comfortable with self, I had to be the funniest, the prettiest, the loudest, the most badass, what I still am. I had that ego, like to fuck shit up and get fucked up, you know what I mean? And I grew up with like a lot of men in my life, and I really idolized them, I think. So that, like, the rebelling started me drinking, police get called, mom picking me up, just all that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
way of life. Yeah, it started a way of life.
It did. It started a way of life, and I just wanted to be like, F you, Mom. And once I did that and dropped out of school, so I made it to 9th grade. They held me back in 9th grade. And once I was held back, I'm not doing another year again.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it. Like, you're going to make me do a whole nother year again? No fucking way, dude. So I dropped out. And as soon as I made that decision at like 15 to drop out, my father said, you can live in my house. Your boyfriend can live here. You have to pay us rent. And that's what we did. But my boyfriend was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And he's older than me.
How much older?
Just a few years, he was 15, he was 17 at the time. And it was just weed. It was just marijuana, It was a lot of marijuana, and we were really good with money, We were kind of like these little hippie kids, and we became good with money, and that's when the pill scene happened. And people wanted us to make them money.
Yeah.
So they dished it,
Yeah. So when you turn 18 years old, where are you and what are you doing?
By 18 years old, I was 18 when I had my baby. By the time he was 6 months old, Wiley, like, I used his whole entire pregnancy with him. Like, I justified it because I sniffed Percocets. But like, I was sniffing like 15, 20 Percocets a day because it didn't matter. Like, they were, 2, 3, 400 fat, in a bag a day of like OC 80s or Perc 30s. I didn't know what I was doing to myself. I didn't know what I didn't know about these drugs, you know what I mean? And I just fucking eat them, ingest them all day. It came to a point where, I was with my son's father, and, I had showed him, I remember him saying, like, I'm intrigued by the way you do it, because at that point I started using a needle. And so he was turned on to a needle, and it was just on and running from there. And like, monkeys can't sell bananas. Real quickly, we were getting robbed, you know. 'Cause I turned my father's house into a trap house, you know what I mean? Doors getting kicked in, using our own tools to rob us, you know. Whole safes getting ripped out of floors.
Explain one of those situations.
I was 8 months pregnant.
Were you using while you were pregnant?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Yep.
talk about that after because that's an issue that a lot of women go through, and I think that people would want to hear about it.
Absolutely, it's a huge part of my story, you know.
So tell me about one of these situations.
I wasn't home, I was actually working. Luckily, like, my kid's father's parents own a restaurant, so, like, I grew up in that environment, like, smoke, weed, drink, back to the house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I cooked, you know, they put me through bartending school, they had me become a waitress, so, like, I had a pretty good job. Even when I was using, I was able to maintain this job because it's family, you know? I was at work, I come home, every single down my hallway. First of all, my door is kicked open into our dining room. And it's got a pretty good, like, deadbolt on it, but ripped the wall apart. Start going down my hallway, and ours was the last bedroom on the left, and it was like the master bedroom. And, you know, you go in the bedroom, you turn a corner, there's a bathroom right against the wall right there. And what killed me is they used our own tools, man. I went in my own garage. Father was newly sober. My dad had just got sober, and he had roommates. So he had other men, you know, newly recovering in his home, and after door got kicked in, which, like, ruined the structure of the home, actually. But my room, it was torn apart, you know, and the safe was gone. And, like, coming home, when you have money like that and you have someone you owe, you know, you're going to owe a lot of money to, and you see everything gone. Well, dad inside that, and this was 2 weeks before I had my baby, you know.
Sure that a lot in the moment, being a teenage girl, and, you know, your life is over with this one thing.
Yeah.
That, you know, 90% of people aren't going to come and kill a little girl because they owe money. But,
No.
you know, it's very real to you at the time.
My life became over because now I couldn't afford my. Now I became dirty, scummy, not with me. And I think that was the feeling of, like, my life is over. So, you know, right off the bat, it was like, right off the bat. He had nothing, no pills, no nothing. And this is, you know, I'm about to have my baby. And I just remember having so much fear and, like, not normal fears surrounding having my child. The fears I was having was, like, not will it hurt, or, like, will we be okay? Was the fear of, they're gonna find out my kid's gonna be taken from me, they're gonna send me somewhere. That was those fears. And, the day my water broke was the day I had 230 left. And, I think that's what it was. I think my child was in withdrawal. I was in withdrawal, and I think that affected both of us, and that's why my water broke. I think that's exactly why my kid came a couple weeks early, you know?
So, using when you were pregnant, right? Did you ever think about the baby, like, and how it might affect the baby?
It was scary. Like, so what I did, like, I justified it in a way of, like, people are prescribed these things while pregnant, and I was no longer shooting them. I was just sniffing them. But, like, every time I went to go use one, my body knew, man. Like, the baby knew. It was weird. Like, everything would cramp up, and I just hit this feeling like, this is fucking wrong. Everything about this is wrong.
Yeah.
The love for your baby can't keep you from sniffing that fucking perk off of your own belly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. You know?
That's deep right there.
And it's just my reality, you know? For a long time, I judged people. I judged women, especially, like, mothers. Like, why are you gonna have another baby when you just lost this baby? You're like, you know, I was that person. I ate all those words, man. I became that mother, you know? The mother who lost her kids, you know?
So, how did you lose your kids? What exactly happened?
My oldest I gave away because it was easier to use, you know? He was 6 months old. I had a problem. My mom was there. My mom was willing to help, thank God. And I signed him over because in my head, if I signed him over to my mom, the state's not gonna take him.
Yeah.
That's where my thoughts were. My thoughts were, like, he needed his mom the most, you know? Those normal thoughts of, like, the nurturing, loving, caring mother weren't there. It was more thoughts of, like what is my reality gonna be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What was it like when you went in to have your baby? Like, when your water broke and you knew it was early and you were using, and were you worried about, like, getting sick or?
So the most ignorant part about it, I think, it's, like, not telling anybody. So now I know better. Like, regardless of, like, whatever the outcome of that situation would have been, if my child would have been sick, I didn't say a word to them. he didn't test positive. I don't know how that worked out, but like in 3 days I could went home with my baby. You know what I mean? And it was weird, like he didn't test positive. I don't know how. It's just like all those fears I had, like somehow it worked out. And I just remember as soon as I had him, my girl called me and she's like, "You want me to bring you some Dunkin' Donuts, some iced coffee, something?" And I was like, "No, bring me a Percocet." Like she did. Like I just remember doing Perc and being okay and being like, "New mom, I have my baby." But that like maintaining, like trying to maintain like sniffing the Percs, it didn't work. You know what I mean? Within a couple of weeks, like my life was unmanageable with this baby, you know?
And so did you have money? Were you broke? What were you doing for money?
So I was broke. Like I never really like prostituted myself, like walked out on the street and did anything like that, but I would slept with drug dealers. I chose who I hung out with. I knew who I could get what I wanted out of. And as a woman, I think in a pretty woman, like it was easy for me. It was easy for me not to think about like what I was doing to myself, you know what I mean? I didn't care as long as I got that next 50, you know what I mean? And not having my child, you know, I gave him to my mom. It hurt, you know, I was in pain. I loved this kid. I was in pain, but like I couldn't stay clean. And I excused it, like better off, you know, with my mom. But that gave me the okay to just do whatever.
So after you have your baby and you're doing all this stuff, do you think about the future at all? Like, are you trying to plan for your child or anything like that?
I was thinking about this the other day because, like, I literally said this. You know, I've been struggling lately, and I said like I'm a 30-something-year-old woman who has 4 children, who has I don't have no life skills. Because I've learned a lot of life skills, you know, in the last few years. Like, I don't really have good life skills. I'm still being taught life skills. Luckily, like, I'm in a position, like, I know how to ask for help, but, like, how I look back on me, like, just popping out these babies with, like, I thought I was in love, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what love was. If you showed me attention and told me I was pretty, you loved me.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, I had a bunch of kids with this man because I thought he loved me. We were going to have a family, you know. Our future was his parents' basement.
Yeah.
That was our future. Like, it was never planned. It was like, let's have another baby because it's cute and I know he's going to love me more if we have another child together. And it wasn't like trapping it by any means. It was like once I had a child with him, I wanted this family, this idea of family that like he never could provide, nor could I.
Yeah.
You know, we were in no position. And still today, like I have those doubts. You know, I try not to as a mother be like, I wasn't good enough today. You know, I'm not a good mom, or like, I could have done this differently, or like thinking of all the years, like I screwed up my kids, man. They're great. They're amazing kids, you know, and we're working on healing them and healing us, you know. I think it's the biggest thing, but
how did you make it till now? Like,
make it sobriety or make it?
How did you make it into sobriety? How did you get a house? How do you have any kids? Like, how did you do all that coming from nothing and like no future?
So like I was frequent flyer and detoxes. I never did further treatment. You know, I did this for years and years and years. And like by the time I was, you know, once it started at 15, I did this from 15 to 21. And that's when I was asked to be sentenced. At that point, you know, from 18 to 21, all I did, and, you know, I had this child, you know, and I had this idea of me, of what I wanted to be as a mom. And, like, I really wanted to stay clean so many times, and I had the right idea of what I wanted to do. So I'd always go, like, I'd go to detox. I knew about AA from a young age, but it was always, like, a social thing. I never knew how to be honest with myself. I was never willing to be honest with myself. So it never worked for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? This time, like, I can't tell you if it was God or what. I couldn't stay clean for my kids, but when I lost my kids, finally, all 4, something changed, and I think it was more of a willingness, and I don't fucking know shit, clearly. I've lost everything. I got a backpack with no kids that I'm on Mass Ave, you know? Yeah. I handed my kids over, you know, right to the left of Mass Ave, you know?
How did you end up on Mass Ave?
I was clean at the time. I got my children and I had nowhere to go. And so I was placed within a shelter, placed us in a hotel off Mass Ave. And, it's not a good look for someone who's newly clean with their children to live in a hotel off Mass Ave. Somebody went and got emergency custody of my children, and it hurt because at the time I was 7 months sober. I was just trying to do like whatever I could for my kids, and I didn't know what to do for them. Yeah, so they came and I handed my kids over to my family. And from then it was like a fight, a battle, in fact, to get them back. But like my kids, I just knew there wasn't a lot of chances from here. I think that's a big part.
How did your kids view you? Like, were they old enough to know, like, mommy doing drugs?
My oldest son, has memories of showing me how he walked the first time. I'm not joking. He remembers walking, holding my dad's hands, and like letting go of my dad's hands, and with me in jail, like through the window. Like he has memories of that. My oldest, I think, is the one that hurts me the most. A lot of years raised by someone else because I didn't have the confidence or didn't know how to do it on my own. Or and I don't know how I'm doing it now even sometimes. It's like I know if I don't pick up, I know God's working in my life, and like I brought it this far. I've got through everything I've ever got through to make it to here. Like there's a reason for it. So like if it's a hard day or I'm feeling a feeling that's like way too big, because all my life I felt the feeling and I didn't know what it was or what it meant. And I just couldn't put a finger on it. So instead I just stuff them. You know what I mean? So like now I know, like I proved to myself, I had to. I had to get those kids back. And that's like for a lot of years, like when there was a monkey on my back, I could do good for a certain amount of time. Get rid of probation, get rid of DCF, over and over again. But as soon as they were gone, I was right back to the old me, you know what I mean? That was all fake, and this time it wasn't fake. It was for real. And I was a bulldog. And so if getting high was getting in the way from me getting my kids back, I was not going to get high over any feeling, anything. And I proved that to myself. I don't have to. I can sit through it. I can deal with it. It doesn't feel good, but I can,
Yeah, absolutely. What was it like seeing your kid through the glass in jail?
Terrible. I think after that really gave me the okay of like, I don't care what happened to him. In jail, like, that's a whole nother episode,
Yeah, like I think that we might be able to actually do, this seems like a natural pause and we could do a part 2. You want to do that?
Absolutely.
Alright, so I think that this is good for today. Next time we're going to get into how Grace went to jail and what it felt like seeing her kids through the glass and how she actually found her peace in life and ended up where she is today. But I think the main points are seeing her kids through the glass in jail, man. Like that's got to be a tough situation. I know a lot of mothers probably go through that themselves. So I'm glad you guys showed up to listen to Grace's story, and there's much more to come. Appreciate y'all. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Number out.